Hello, hello. Chainsaw Man chapter 205 came out today, and there is quite a bit to go over. And there's also a bit of a couple inconsistencies as well in the chapter, so let's go ahead and get into it. The chapter opens with we finding out who the head belongs to of the fake Chainsaw Man. And it turns out to be some guy. Denji doesn't recognize him. And neither do most readers. So the Fire Devil explained who this person is. So apparently, back in the day, or maybe just a couple months ago, the Fire Devil was injured and he was rescued by a pair of twins. The twins idolized Denji as Chainsaw Man and told the Fire Devil about his heroics and exploits. And the Fire Devil, in turn, is inspired by that and grants its powers to other people around the world who would form contracts with him, giving them a piece of his power. So, the twins themselves included have taken the Fire Devil's powers and became, I guess, pseudo chainsaw men. But one day, in chapter, I think, 102, Denji showed up to fight the Cockroach Devil. The Cockroach Devil picked up the younger brother, younger of the two twins, and used them as a hostage against Denji. The Cockroach Devil also picked up like a car of old men and women, but they don't matter. But anyways, Denji ignored both the men and women and the younger brother to go save a cat. So the younger brother unfortunately fell to his death. And thus the older twin has sworn vengeance upon Denji and supposedly living out the rest of his life to get revenge on Denji for betraying their trust. So that is the Fire Devil's story, at least. But as I said earlier, there are a lot of things that don't make sense at all when you think about it. So because the timeline is a bit weird, the Fire Devil was infecting people with his powers and its badness way before Denji killed the Cockroach Devil and the younger brother. So, in the very first chapter of Part 2, the class president was already contracted with the Fire Devil, and she was not well in the head. She was driven mad by the Fire Devil's power. So, I guess they never really said that it started after the younger brother's death, but the Fire Devil's influence was always a negative one. It wasn't like caused by the younger brother's death to start driving people mad. But we'll get to the other parts in a bit. But Barum and Fami, or the Death Devil now, the former Fami, also said that they've been working with the Fire Devil for some time now, at least enough to infect 300,000 plus people around the world. So this probably isn't a recent thing. It's been in the works for months and possibly even years. So it's hard to believe that, the Fire Devil only started working with Barum and Fami, the former Fami, the now Death Devil, after the younger brother died. So the timeline is a bit tricky on that. But even more, I guess, more damning is that the Fire Devil claimed that the fake Chainsaw Man, the older twin, now is after revenge. That's what he wants. But that doesn't make a whole lot of sense because the fake Chainsaw Man apparently saved Denji in the past from the Falling Devil. And he also hunted down Yuko, who is infected with the same Fire Devil. So there's some clash of ideas here, because those two things don't really reflect that he is after revenge at Denji. Also, from what we've seen of the fake Chainsaw Man, he's been saying that he has the Justice Devil inside of him, not the Fire Devil. So that appears to be his impression. So it's, from what we can imply here, the Fire Devil lied to the twins. He never really revealed himself as a ball of fire, but rather something else to them. And another bit of a inconsistency is that the younger brother died from falling off the cockroach devil's hand as he was being killed by Denji. So, but the Fire Devil also claims that the twins were the first to get his power. It's, I don't know the proper gender for the Fire Devil. But anyways, if the twins do have its power, you would maybe think that the younger brother would survive being dropped from a couple stories tall, or at least try to transform when he was in like the cockroach devil's hands. He didn't do any of that. So all of this makes me think that the Fire Devil isn't exactly being very truthful right now. So I think chances are either there's a lot of inconsistencies in the story, or the Fire Devil is lying. But anyways, the Fire Devil asks Denji to choose between two options again, giving him another moral dilemma to think about. And according to it, it's a similar moral dilemma to the previous one with the younger brother and the car of old people. So, from what we can maybe extrapolate, we can maybe guess that the Fire Devil's going to make Denji choose between the hundreds of thousands of people that he's contracted to, or perhaps to save Asa and Yoru, possibly, maybe. I don't think it's going to be Asa and Yoru on the other end of the pendulum, other end of the scale, because it's like, I feel like there's going to be a couple different options aside from that, because I feel like that's too well, it doesn't like match the original stakes, right? Because the original option for Denji was, he actually had three options, which is to save the little brother, save the car full of old people, or to be selfish and look cool to save the cat. So I guess the two options here are either A, to be altruistic, or B, to save an unrelated, be like, to save his followers is what I meant, because his two options here are to, I don't know, I'm just guessing, but I think his two options are going to be to save either his followers that now turned into chainsaw zombies, or to save random people in the city that now hates him, is my first guess. Because that's like a choice between altruism and for like selfish ego purposes. But anyways, the chapter then ends with Yoru in a building getting thrown across the block. She's getting her ass beat by the Falling Devil. So she then asks Denji to save her, and Denji squares off with the Falling Devil. Yeah, that's where the chapter ends. So I think I said last chapter that Yoru really shouldn't be a match for the Falling Devil, because the Primordials are on a different level in that they've never been killed ever, supposedly. So even at her full strength, the War Devil should be like tiers below the Falling Devil. But yeah, anyways, I guess the end of Yoru asking Denji for help is a bit similar to Makima asking for Denji's help in part 1 when she was in trouble against the Santa, the Darkness Devil infused Santa. But in this case, Denji is a lot less enthusiastic about helping her, as he is pondering his own morality and his own ethics. But yeah, that's where the chapter ends. Let's go to the comments for now. Let's see. Actually, before I go to the comments, I think there's a last thing I want to go over is the bit of parallel between Denji and the twins, in that they do look kind of similar. They're blonde, they're young, they saved injured devils from certain death, and they supposedly houses them in themselves. They have devils in them now. So some basic parallels. I'm sure there's probably others if we can look deeper into it. But that's what I like. That's the surface level parallels that I've got so far. If you guys can think of any, feel free to share them. But yeah, back to the comments. Hello, this chapter didn't make a lot of sense. Why would Fake Soul Man help Denji when he and Yoru were swallowed by the Justice Devil? Swallowed by the yeah, Justice Devil. Wouldn't he hate Denji for what he did to his brother? Yeah, that's what we talked about a bit at the end. Well, technically, he didn't help them against the Justice Devil. He attacked the Falling Devil from behind. The Justice Devil was not touched by him, but same thing. Also, Fake Soul Man never showed any animosity against Chainsaw Man. If Denji betrayed their trust, wouldn't he take a different form? Yes. So yeah, that's what we talked about a bit at the end, which is that his anger at Denji doesn't really reflect what the Fire Devil just said. Although I will say he probably attained that form before his brother died, because the Fire Devil did say that they got the power first before both of them were granted the Fire Devil's powers at one point. But again, it's kind of weird that they have powers now, but they still died to, like, the Cockroach Devil from a simple fall. Because if you can't survive, like, falling 10 stories down, are you really a empowered being? I don't think so. But yeah, anyways, where was I? Also, why would the younger brother turn to Fake Soul Man? He should be semi-immortal since the Fire Devil was already in him. Just arrived, but I think the Fire Devil is lying too. Yes. We've seen Fujimoto come with the characters lying a lot in part 2. We cannot trust the dialogue, but in action. Yeah, so that's definitely something I appreciate a bit about part 2, in that a lot of the characters, what they say don't really reflect reality. Whereas in other series, if a character says something, it's almost certainly like a fact. If anyone was going to take out Yuko, it would have been Flasher Fami, so she could control her. Both Yuko and Fake Soul Man are Fire Devil linked. Yes, because the Fire Devil is also, if you remember from a couple chapters back, the Fire Devil was also whispering into the fake Chainsaw Man's ear. But again, the fake Chainsaw Man thinks that it's the Justice Devil talking to him. So I don't know. The Fire Devil is not, like, even his identity is still a secret to the fake Chainsaw Man. So he's definitely not being very honest. But younger brother could have been reattached to get revived like Katana and the other hybrids. Weird how the Fire Devil made a contract with the twins but didn't make them hybrids, since that's a huge upgrade. So my understanding of how the hybrids work is that it's only the weapons that can be used as hybrids because they have like certain activation triggers, whereas the Fire Devil just gave them his power through contracts. So like how the Fox Devil gave Aki and others their a portion of its power, like the permission to use him. I think that's similar what's happening with the Fire Devil, which is why they don't have triggers and regeneration and semi immortality. Um but still, I think even though they're not as strong as the hybrids and the others, I feel it's still kind of weird that he didn't use any of that when his life was in danger. That was a bit. I'm still. That's like the biggest reason why I'm not buying that. Let's see. How was Barum outranking the twins? Fire Devil is the core of Death's plan. Yes, that's another thing, because I assume the Death Devil's plan was already set in stone from the start, so the Fire Devil shouldn't be influenced by the twins this much to, you know, be such a core part of the Death Devil's plan. In my head, I thought the Fire Devil came onto Earth already with the intent of corrupting hundreds of thousands of people and turning them into chainsaw whatever creatures. But yeah. But interesting chapter, a lot to think about. We still haven't really answered what the Fire Devil and the twin thinks Denji's mistake is. So from this chapter, we can maybe guess that they think his mistake was his Boro fillings, which is a bit disappointing in terms of actual mistakes that Denji's committed. But it makes sense, I guess. Let's see, maybe you talked about this, but you arrived late. The best proof to think that the Fire Devil is lying happens when Asa gets killed in the first chapter. Asa gets killed in the first chapter. Alright, you gotta elaborate, please. I think I maybe have an idea of what you're going with, but because my flying of thought at first was that the class president was already driven to madness at the start, even before the younger brother died. Because the Fire Devil doesn't say that, but like I feel like it's implying that it started to multiply a lot after the younger brother's death. Although it does say that they shared its power, they formed contracts with a lot of people, like even before that, because the twins were watching him and they were proud, supposedly. Um, yeah, Flasher Fanny. Yes, she did flash. You know, on a side note, I never really got into the flashing panties meta for anime. Because in a lot of anime, they got like girls flashing their panties. I'm just like, man, that's some lame stuff. But anyways, that's the end of the chapter. I think we talked about all that we could talk about for this week. Um, yeah, so, anyways, a lot to think about. We'll come back for another chapter next week.